Hi everyone, welcome to the August Make for All community call. My name is Steph Santoso and I'm the Director of Maker Initiatives at Citizen Schools and the lead for the Make for All initiative. So these calls are designed to really give commitment makers an opportunity to share more about their work, provide asks for help, and provide offers to help others based on resources and expertise that you and your organizations have. For organizations who haven't made commitments to support maker-centered learning in our previous call for commitments, these calls are also just a great chance to learn more about what innovative work is happening in this area around the country. And perhaps your organization might make a connection that leads to collaborating or supporting one of these commitment-making organizations, or our hope too is that maybe you'll be inspired to develop a new or expanded initiative focused on maker education and maker-centered learning moving forward. So let's just briefly go over the agenda for today's call. There we go. So I'm super excited because we're going to be hearing more about the work from 3 different commitment-making organizations to start off. So joining us, we have Shelly Rodriguez, who's the director of UTeach Maker. We have Griffith, sorry, Brad, who is the founder of Sequim Community Makerspace and Make Tools in Schools. And we also have Shawn Boger, who's the Regional Program Development Manager at the National Inventors Hall of Fame. So we'll hear from those commitment makers first, hear a little bit more about their work, some of their goals, and then we'll transition to hearing from a few organizations who have been actively supporting and funding maker-centered learning work across the country. I'm excited that we have Janet Auer, who's the Senior Advisor for Global Social Investment at Chevron, and we're also joined by Lakita Edwards, who's the Arts Education Specialist at the National Endowment for Arts, and they'll be sharing their perspectives around maker education. So to make sure that we have plenty of time for all of our featured speakers to share their work, we'll hold all the questions until the last half of the call, but I definitely encourage you to ask any questions you might have about what's discussed by different presenters today, as well as any ideas or feedback that you have about their work. So this is really meant to be the last half of the call is really meant to be interactive and for us to have more time to actually have discussion. And my colleague Megan is also here with me and will be helping to make sure all the presenters are able to share their slides during this call, and then she'll also help facilitate the Q&A and discussion towards the end of the call. So let's go ahead and get started. I'd love to turn things over to Shelly Rodriguez at UTeach Maker. Shelly, are you there?
Can you hear me?
We can, yes. And I think now you're sharing your, yep, we can see your slides as well.
Okay, is that working for everybody?
Perfect, yeah, that looks like it's in presentation mode.
Okay, great. So hello everybody, my name is Shelly Rodriguez. I'm an associate professor of practice here at the University of Texas, and I'm also the director of UTeach Maker. So I wanted to start my short amount of time with this quote from a practicing teacher. So she says, "Making gives students ownership. It's the best expression of creative thinking and a release for your inner need to manifest your thoughts and ideas. It gives a purpose for learning." And it's this notion of empowerment and creative thinking and excitement and bringing that into classrooms that is behind UTeach Maker. So UTeach Maker, oh, I should say that UTeach is a secondary STEM credentialing program for teachers. So secondary math, science, computer science, engineering students who are interested in teaching middle school or high school go through our program to get a teaching certification. And UTeach Maker is a micro-credentialing portion of that. So it's kind of a sidearm. It's an option for our students to take part in. We support these teachers as they develop maker tools and skills. We focus on constructionist learning in K-12 classroom spaces and school spaces. And we're really working to promote initiative, creativity, persistence, and teacher leadership. We're also just really trying to showcase teaching in its best light. As you all know, STEM teaching is an area of high need for most states and most school districts. And so we're really trying to show the bright side of teaching, and that can be creative. It's not all standards and testing, but there's really an opportunity for teachers to have a voice and for students to have a voice in their own learning. So we're really trying to get that enthusiasm back into teaching. Our program is an optional micro-credentialing program. It has several essential features. First of all, it's bounded by our framework, the Maker Showcase, which is an open portfolio. Students create a publicly accessible website of their work that shows their work in several domains, including their philosophy of making. It showcases a project that they've made on their own personal work. It showcases their connections with the broader maker community, and it showcases their interactions with maker education with K-12 students. So that's part of what that portfolio is. It is reviewed by external national leaders in maker education, primarily through people that work for Maker Ed, but we also have had people from the Exploratorium and other national leaders in that area, so that we're sure we're getting an external set of eyes on the work that our students are doing. We have monthly cohort meetings and workshops. Can you still hear me? I guess so. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I can still hear you.
We have maker mentors. So these are maker educators in our community that come and work with our students as they work through their portfolio. We have community events. I spend a lot of time communicating with the students via email and working in a personalized and individualized way with them. And then we have support for classroom making through a little bit of money to help them buy materials and supplies, as well as lesson planning support and things like that. We are really passionate about focusing on classroom teachers, because if we want to reach students in K-12 environments, I truly believe that teachers are the gateway to that. They're at this amazing crossroads between the colleagues that they work with, so the changes in their practice make their way into their own teaching colleagues, the districts that they work with, the curriculum that they write that often ends up being used by people all over the district and sometimes in the state, and that direct impact on students, that relationship that they have, I think is so critical to moving practice forward and giving students opportunities. We want to meet students where they are, so classrooms is where all the students are, and we really are passionate about getting those experiences into the hands of students from all backgrounds. So UTeach makers are change makers. Here are some of the things that they've done. They've brought making to the schools where they work. They've started school maker fairs. They've taught in K-12 maker summer camps. They've led maker professional development for other teachers. They've presented at local and national conferences. They've published their maker-centered lessons in journals like The Science Teacher and Science Scope. And they're continuing to spread the word throughout the UTeach program. UTeach is a teacher preparation program that's actually been replicated at 45 different universities all over the country. And it's these students in UTeach Maker that are the best ambassadors for these other universities taking up these programs. So this is a picture of Phillips and Chris, who are in their UTeach Maker shirts, interacting with faculty from Northern Arizona University and the University of Nevada, Reno, two programs that are actually going to be working on implementing UTeach Maker this year. And that leads us to our Make for All initiative. We are hoping to get 22 more UTeach programs across the country. You can see a map of those programs, integrating making into STEM teacher preparation by 2022. And we actually have 6 universities this coming year that are going to be working on starting up their own UTeach Maker programs, and these universities span the map from all the way over from Nevada all the way to the other side of the map at West Virginia University. So we have a lot of interest, and it's really exciting to get pre-service teachers and these program graduates involved in making. So what we need funding. UTeach Maker has been funded by an NSF grant, but our funding runs out this year, so we're definitely looking for funding to support our efforts. We're looking for post-program support for our Maker Fellows as they become classroom teachers. And we're looking for support for new UTeach Maker sites across the country. What we offer is an established model for micro-credentialing around making. We offer published lessons, resources, and practitioner publications. and we offer a nationwide network of universities. I think that's all I have. But this is our information. If you want to find out more or contact us, you can find us on social media at UTeach Maker.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Shelly, for sharing out that work. And if you all have questions or thoughts about UTeach Maker, please feel free to save those, and we can talk about them a little bit more during the last half of the webinar and call. Next we actually have, I'm going to flip through your slides they have on the master deck. We have Brad Griffith, who is the founder of Sequim Community Makerspace and Make Tools in Schools. So I'll go ahead and let Brad share a little bit more about the work that he's doing and how he is really broadening access to some of these experiences in his community. Brad, are you able to? Perfect, we can hear you. Would you like to share your screen, or would you prefer for me to run the slides on my end?
Let's see, can you not see my screen?
I don't think we can, but I have your slides queued up. So if you wanted, if it's easier, I'm happy to control the slides for you.
I see your screen, Brad.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for having me speak on Make Tools in Schools. I'm Brad Griffith, and this is my big idea and story. One man can still make a difference. I'm a home builder and STEM education inventor living in small timber town outside of Seattle. I've always enjoyed building with wood. Out here, it's our greatest natural resource. I became super passionate about wood when the middle school took woodworking out of the school as my kids were about to be entered into that program. These two slides here, they are thin slices of wood from sunshine coming through it. And this is Doug fir. You can see the growth lines. And I'm not sure what this one is, but I've studied wood for quite a while. So it was at this time I discovered across our country, they were doing away with the easiest material to teach what I call eye, hand, and brain skills for our kids. So I decided to make my stand and bring wood back to the classroom. So you can see this is a little match. These are all popsicle sticks and a penny. So I invented craft stick bending. So every classroom could become a small-scale, project-based, hands-on learning lab. Craft stick bending is the ability to bend, mold, and shape quarter-inch wood and smaller into hundreds of shapes without steam, boiling, or chemicals. You simply soak the wood in water overnight and shape it around an object, and when it dries in that shape. These are popsicle sticks. Imagine the next generation of science projects, future city competitions, or popsicle stick bridge building competitions using craft woods made to order and made by the students. I still had a problem though. I could teach this very easily through my YouTube channel to anyone, but the problem was I had no tools. Most classrooms don't have tools. So 2 years ago, I started designing small hand tools made from everyday objects around us and teaching students and teachers how to do it. We start by making a ruler. You can see the ruler tape, and we just apply it to a yardstick or paint stick or craft sticks. We go into teaching compasses, dividers, T-squares, calipers, screwdrivers, drills, saws, anything you would find in your real toolbox at home or your folks. These tools that we make are from simple items around the house, or they could be donated by the new partners in education, local hardware stores, and local manufacturers. Now educators and students have the skills needed to bend craft wood and the tools to learn eye, hand, and brain coordination skills. Second, here we go. So these are just some other examples. Sequim Community Makerspace is my community give back and the way I'm introducing these new skills to educators. This was a group of kids, summer class. We made all sorts of things, but the tree house was the big project for them. My commitment to the Make for All was I'm making 50 tool making videos and placing them on my YouTube channel. I have to date about 20 of them done. These are just slides from where I've been. To discover the best practice, I have been around the Puget Sound, Seattle, teaching wood bending and tool making to anyone who would listen or pay any attention to me. This is in another story. This is the Seattle Flight Museum. This is where it all began. My greatest show and tell was at Microsoft's Makerspace, the garage. I presented the future of woodworking titled Invent, Build, Scan, Print, and Share, which is a classroom, product, and business competition for middle and high school students. Wood is the easiest natural resource to teach eye, hand, and brain skills. Let's work together to bring these skills back to the classroom. If you're ever near the Olympic Peninsula of Washington State, please look me up for a tour of my 12 years of developing projects for the STEM and MAKE movements. So this is several places where you can find me on the internet. These link right to whatever page it is. Well, this one here, Make Tools in Schools, is where you'll find the 20 videos I have done and the 50 I'm working up to. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much, Brad. And I think one of the things that really resonated with me when I first learned about your work was just the fact that you're using wood and materials that are significantly more widely accessible to communities and students across the country. And when we talk a lot about the goal of Make for All, it's really focused on broadening access to maker-centered learning experiences. And one way to do that is through programs and approaches like yours, which really look at taking, materials that and technologies that are much more widely available and thinking about the ways that you can work with what a community may already have available. So we'll make sure to share the links in your contact information so folks can tap into those resources. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next up, we have Shawn Boger. Shawn, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your last name, who is representing the National Inventors Hall of Fame. So I will just turn it right over to you to share a little bit more about the work that you all are doing there, supporting educators and students.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Stephanie. And it's Boger, but no problem at all.
Thank you, now I know.
Thanks for the introduction. Can I ask can you see my full screen or can you see my slides?
We see your, we don't see your presentation mode. So if you wanted to, we can see like a smaller version.
So it's not letting me choose a different screen. Okay, so
I can also, let's see. So we see your slides, but then we also see like the notes on the side.
Right, right. Okay. So it is, and I apologize for this. I wasn't sure. How about this? Can you see it
There we
now?
go. That's perfect. I think
Perfect.
that's
Wow, I actually knew how to do something in PowerPoint that worked. So, hi everyone, my name is Shawn Boger. I am with the National Inventors Hall of Fame. My role as a regional representative is to work with schools and districts in 6 states. I also work with what we call our regional network initiative on a national level, and that's how I met Stephanie and became part of the Make for All commitment. So for those of you who don't know, the National Inventors Hall of Fame, we are a nonprofit organization. We were founded in 1973 in partnership and through the work of the United States Patent and Trademark Office. We've grown to be a leader in providing pre-K STEM programming, also through 12th grade. Part of that is invention education, providing those resources and enrichment programs for educators. And I just want to note that we have been doing this for over 29 years when STEM wasn't an acronym. So hands-on inquiry-based learning is all about what we do. Of course, the National Inventors Hall of Fame has inductees. We have an annual ceremony in Washington, D.C. In early May. It's a black tie gala event, very fun. Get to meet this year's inductees and past inductees. More information is at invent.org. We do also have a bricks and mortar museum, and that is located on the campus of the United States Patent and Trademark Office in Alexandria, Virginia. This is a little sneak peek on the inside of the museum. The reach and the depth and breadth of the organization goes into all 50 states as well as Canada and Puerto Rico. These are our numbers from 2018. I don't quite have the numbers for this year yet. We're just wrapping up our summer months. Camp Invention is our flagship program that runs during the summer. But as you can see, we have been reaching children and educators again for over 29 years. And we have actually now about 570 some inductees. So apologies for not knowing that exact number. I did mention that we are partnered with the United States Patent and Trademark Office, and the Make for All commitment for us, it goes obviously beyond this commitment, because we believe that everyone needs to understand and know that we do have a constitutional right to protect our ideas. And if you want to take a look at that, Article 1, Section 8, for the Patent and Copyright Clause of the Constitution for a bit more about that. But it starts with to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. And it's always amazing to us that there are educators who have heard about the patent, copyright, and trademark system, but really aren't familiar on how it's used or how to provide that information to their students. Part of that is exposure, and there is a Harvard research study out there. That's the link to where you can find more information, but it's really about the equality of the opportunity to provide that exposure to students and giving them the opportunity to become an inventor. We call them the lost Edisons, and there are the usual suspects of that disparity in the exposure due to race, gender, and socioeconomic background. So we work in several different areas to provide that exposure, pre-K, starting with Invention Playground, all the way through our Collegiate Inventors Competition. Both Camp Invention and Club Invention are summer and after school programs for elementary students up to 6th grade. STEM Maker Lab is our in-school curriculum for elementary students and Invention Project for middle school students, all where we provide the curriculum and materials to facilitate those programs. Of course, the Collegiate Inventors Competition, not so much. They bring their inventions to us, and they are judged by a panel of patent attorneys and patent examiners and National Inventors Hall of Fame inductees. The other way that we provide that exposure is through our professional development. We do have standalone professional development workshops, as well as professional development where we're doing large district implementations, such as New York City, Fulton County Schools in Georgia, of several Hillsborough County, Panelist, Pasco in Florida, and our Innovation Day is our Make for All commitment, where we're offering 3 professional development workshops that are funded by the National Inventors Hall of Fame and the United States Patent and Trademark Office. And they are full day experience, no cost to our educators. It's a 6-hour hands-on workshop. We'll have a NIF inductee as a keynote. And then the educators are going to go through the design thinking process, the invention process, creative problem solving. We're going to share a lot of information about intellectual property, and of course, getting into entrepreneurship as well. And again, the biggest, in listening to the first presentation, that exposure to innovation starts with our teachers and educators, and just allowing them to have an opportunity to work with materials in a hands-on environment where there isn't any of their constraints of the classroom. To do that it provides a successful experience. We have scheduled our first Innovation Day in Kansas City, Missouri on November 2nd, and that will happen at Guadalupe Centers High School. The other 2 are going to be in San Jose and Alexandria, Virginia. Both of those dates are TBD, but the one in Alexandria, Virginia will be at the United States Patent and Trademark Office on their campus, and in part at the National Inventors Hall of Fame Museum. So wanted to share that we do have a blog, and we also have white papers that you can access on our website for a little bit more information on our research and insights that go along, obviously, with everyone's, the reason we're here today. And I think that is it. I sorry if I talked too fast. Stephanie, did I impart everything that makes sense for what we're doing here?
I think that was great, Shawn. It just, I know 7 minutes is not nearly enough time for you all to share everything, that the breadth and depth of what you're doing, but I think it gives participants at least a taste and sampling of all of the different programs and initiatives you're working on supporting invention education and maker-centered learning. So thank you so much. And one quick question was just, I was curious, since you already have the date and the location confirmed for the Kansas City, Missouri Innovation Day, is there a place where folks might be able to go if they're interested in signing up, or is are signups not yet available? Should we wait for that?
I will be sending that out to you. I think they're finalizing all of the information for that, and we'll be sending it out to, obviously, educators and school districts in the Kansas City area. But absolutely, that is on my list to provide you with that information.
Great. Okay, that's perfect. Thank you so much again. All right, so we've heard from 3 of our wonderful commitment-making organizations, and so we're going to transition from 2 of my colleagues that I've had the privilege to work with for a number of years now. So Janet Auer is actually somebody that I met back when I was working in DC, and has just an amazing advocate and supporter for digital fabrication education and maker-centered learning. And so she's going to share a little bit more about the longstanding work that Chevron has been working on, really focused on those areas, as well as STEM education. So Janet, feel free to take it away. Oh, and we can see your slides, but I don't think we can hear you.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now. Can you see my screen now and hear me?
Yes, we can see. Yep, we can see your screen and now we can hear you.
Okay,
Thanks.
perfect. Thank you, Stephanie. As Stephanie mentions, yeah, we've been in contact for a very long time supporting education in Stephanie's various roles. So again, my name is Janet Auer. I work at Chevron in our corporate headquarters based in San Ramon, California. And we'll tell you a little bit about how Chevron approaches education funding, our kind of strategic focus, and how maker education fits into that. And then give some information on how we play as an advocate for some of these organizations, and potentially some suggestions on for others on how to work with funding organizations. So just a quick back slide that I always like to start with. STEM education and education funding in recent years, with all of the educational cutbacks, has become something that a lot of companies do. I'm here to say that our company believes in it so much. We've been doing it for over 100 years. And it's also very interesting that we've been supporting kind of hands-on learning since we can trace it back to the 1920s. Aviation was the latest technology, so we took teachers, educators, superintendents who were potentially looking at adopting these standards to the airport, took them up in planes to show them real world examples, hands-on, how it actually works. And then in the 50s, we did learn by doing kits, again, to enable teachers and students to understand how the oil industry worked. Both of these examples are probably not something we would do in terms of how to effectively do hands-on education, but just to show now, just to show you some of our history in this work. Hold on, my slides don't seem to be, oh, there we go. And we try to do this all with keeping a diverse workforce lens in place, and a holistic lens at the same time, by supporting K-12 schools, community colleges, and university partnerships. And then Chevron employees, the learning doesn't just stop when you join a company like Chevron. As everybody is fully aware, technology changes so quickly. So Chevron really believes in supporting employees' development and supporting opportunities to learn. And then just a little stats about kind of our impact since 2013. And then just a holistic view of how we think about supporting America's future innovators. Everything from very deep learning in school courses to supporting teachers through Donors Choose to get basic supplies in classes, as well as working with university partnerships to strengthen curriculum and things like that. And then I'll talk mostly about the programs that we fund to support students and teachers, or students and educators, through making. If you've heard of the Fab Foundation, their project putting Fab Labs in which are digital fabrication spaces, they traditionally had been very loosely tied to education, and did a lot of work with entrepreneurs and general makers. We worked with them to create a program that we could put Fab Labs in K-12 settings, whether it's in an actual school or whether it's in a community college to support K-12, or whether it's at a community center. We put 10 labs throughout the US. Our last one launched in Houston last year. And although they're in very different spaces, their missions are the same: to support educators with professional development to support students, K-12 students with hands-on project-based learning. And then part of the mission is that they're open and accessible some of the time to the general communities. So we found that entrepreneurs are coming into some of the spaces and creating small businesses. Students are using them to work on projects with, and the last bullet, Project Lead the Way, which we support hands-on engineering or computer science. We often tie those two together, the Fab Labs and Project Lead the Way, so that students can not only design and do the engineering design process with their courses, but then they can go to a Fab Lab and actually make that object or thing that they wanted to make. And I want to be really clear that we try to make making intentional. It's not making for the sake of making something. It's so that kids can see something that's relevant to them and solve that challenge or solve that problem, or make something that's very personal to them to encourage the hands-on learning. We've also supported several makerspaces outside of the Fab Labs at children's museums, libraries, things like that. We work closely with Maker Ed on educator resources and conferences and all things educator related. And Nation of Makers conferences, the Week of Making, again, to bring makers of all shapes and sizes together. And then I mentioned Project Lead the Way, which ties in very nicely to the whole picture of what we're trying to do. And the reason that we do this type of work is that we find too often that kids are not interested in engineering or engineering design, or just the engineering design process, and I'll use that broadly, of the notion of trying something, it doesn't work, trying again, making something that's not going to work the first time they make it, and recreating it, something that's personal to them or to solve a community issue. And the role that we've played with a lot of the initiatives that I've outlined above is to really help those organizations through capacity building, helping connect them with other organizations that are doing similar work, so that, for example, Fab Foundation, Fab Labs weren't so good at teacher professional development because it's not what they've typically done. So working with other organizations to help them to create some resources, or again, the Project Lead the Way piece, connecting them to Fab Labs. We try to look really closely at making it a holistic program, and to make sure that we're not just funding an organization, but that we're kind of rolling up our sleeves on the ground, helping get them into schools, districts, and helping them to be the best program and project that they can be. And then ideas or suggestions to share with working with funding organizations. A couple things I would talk on that is to look for organizations, companies, foundations, in-kind donations in organizations that are close by where you're located. If you're a national organization, but you have offices in certain locations or really strong programs, in those locations, look for organizations who fund very locally. As a large multinational corporation, very few of the things that we fund are a national platform where the funding goes out and then an organization can use it to, in this community or that community. It's very targeted to where we have employees, so that we can be very intentional and get our employees also involved. And as I have worked in this space for a long time, working and talking with other companies and funders, most every organization has a geographic criteria for where funding would go. So look very locally, even if it's national funding. And then also priorities of what organizations do, or priorities of what their funding or initiatives are to support, and make sure it aligns directly with those priorities. And then finally, I will say, if you're looking to work with a corporation as opposed to a foundation or purely kind of philanthropic grant making, look for opportunities to partner with those organizations. Again, whether it's having volunteers into your program or ways that beyond the funding, look for partnership opportunities and be open to having collaborative conversations and kind of pulling back your program and open to being collaborative on what you're doing. So with that, that's all that I had. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Janet, for sharing those insights. And I know that you have to hop off a bit early. So since Janet does have to leave a little bit early, I did want to give anybody who might have a question to share that with Janet before she has to leave. So if you do have a particular question for Janet, if you can actually use the hand raise feature that's on the dashboard of your webinar, the little webinar box. Or you can just click on the hand raise button and Megan will be able to unmute you, or you can also type it into the chat box. So I'll just give folks a couple seconds if anybody has any specific questions for Janet. Oh, I think Mara has something. Yep, no problem.
Thanks, Zach. Steph. I'm gonna open it up to Zach Dell, who had a question really quickly. So I'm gonna unmute you, Zach.
Coming through?
Yep.
Yes, we can hear you.
My name is Zach Dell from Folsom Lake College, and my question has to do with, and you sort of touched on it, but I wanted to know about your we talk a lot about ecosystem development in terms of California makerspaces, and in particular, a recent effort helped 24 community colleges stand up or expand spaces. And it occurs to me that I know that many of our fetal schools, and I know that's true a lot in California, are PLTW schools. So I just wonder about avenues and opportunities for collaboration. You talked about collab between Fab Labs and PLTW schools, but I know that there are many community colleges now that are sort of ripe for partnership. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yep, and if you reach out to Stephanie, she can also give you my contact information, because I'd be happy to talk with you offline about this as well. Because Project Lead the Way is nationwide, and there's such a lot of them here, especially in California, and the maker space movement, that is a perfect place to start, because those kids are learning kind of the making skills, if you will, but without the ability to actually make those items that they're learning to design. So what we've done is we've done joint community meetings with Project Lead the Way teachers, brought them into Fab Labs or Makerspace to show them what they're all about, and then find time that we can give them some professional development, and so they understand what opportunities there are, and then have actually in some cases brought them back as school groups to use the lab, or kids come on their own. So we started with the teachers and connecting them with the lab, and we're actually working with a cohort of teachers in Mississippi to come up with curriculum that can be used, that ties to the Project Lead the Way, what they're learning, but then actually how would you make that in a digital fabrication space. So happy to talk more offline about that. If that would be helpful.
Yeah, because community colleges serve DI populations in ways that other organizations don't, and so I think that there's a real opportunity to meet some of your interests and the interests of community colleges by partnering. So let's definitely talk. Thanks.
Okay.
Janet, do you have time for one more question, or do you need to hop off? I just want to be
I do. I have time for one more question, and then I have to go. Sorry.
Okay. No, that's totally fine. And I can also forward you any follow-up questions that others might have later. I think we have Mara from City College of San Francisco, who also had a question.
Yeah, and I'll just read it really quickly. She asked, does Chevron have regular funding opportunities or grantees? And if so, how do we find out about available programs? And similarly, somebody else asked, can you give us links for grant applications for community college makerspaces?
Yes, so we do not we don't have a funding application process. We, because we're very focused on, again, areas where we have employees populations, that we typically seek out in the communities that we operate, seek out organizations that meet those criteria. So we don't have an open application process.
Thank you so much, Janet, for taking the time to share your work with us and your insights.
Okay, thank you all. So okay, bye-bye.
Bye, Janet. So I wanted to turn it over to another colleague, Lakita Edwards, who has been doing some really amazing work with the National Endowment for the Arts. And so she's going to share a little bit more about kind of how the NEA has kind of approached the support of work in the intersection of the arts and maker education. Welcome, Lakita.
Hi, thanks, Steph.
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, and we can also see your slides.
Okay, perfect. And this is a good size for everyone. If I advance, I think I can put it into.
Yep, it's perfect. We can see it. Good size and everything. Yep, great.
Great. So I'm in the Arts Education Division of the National Endowment for the Arts, and we're really focused on supporting students pre-K-12 through experiential learning in the arts, whether it's through specific artistic disciplines, such as design, media arts, dance, music, etc., or if it's through the integration of the arts in other subjects. And of course, I know this audience is very familiar with STEAM pathways. So we're very much focused on how do we support experiential learning in the arts for students in a way that's impactful, where they're engaged and empowered through the arts. And so that can be through direct learning, where students are the sort of target audience for the projects. It can also be through professional development for teaching artists, classroom educators, or other adults who will eventually impact a K-12 population. Or we also support projects that focus on cross-sector collaboration, collective impact, where communities are working together to really think through how are they going to address issues of equity when it comes to accessing quality arts education. And so the NEA, since 2012, we did sort of a survey of our grants to nonprofit organizations focused on making. And since about 2012 onward, our investment in making projects has been over 14 million. We've supported making through projects that focus on developing creative spaces, hosting artist residencies, and really projects that have a focus on advancing cross-disciplinary work, which is of course inherent to making. And on this slide, it's just an overview of eligible applicant organizations. So you'll notice, units of state or local government, municipalities, nonprofits, federally recognized tribes, these are all eligible entities. However, if you're looking at this list and going, wait, this doesn't apply to me, I do want to bring up the point, really look at our funding stream from a multiplayer mindset, if you will. Chances are you do know a Boys and Girls Club. Chances are you are plugged into a faith-based institution. chances are, you are working with a school district or a specific school that's connected to a school district. So, we really do support collaborative partnerships. So if you're not an eligible applicant, certainly you can be a supportive project partner with an eligible applicant. Bring up one of our biggest funding opportunities is called Artworks. And Artworks, it's really offered twice a year, generally. Our most recent deadline was July 11th, not upcoming, but most recent. But typically, the deadlines are in February and in July. And we try to post the upcoming guidelines in December to give all of our, constituents an opportunity to get a preview, start planning. I'm sure some of you are familiar with the grants.gov application process, which can be rather rigorous. So in December, definitely check our website, arts.gov, for the guidelines to Artworks. And I want to take an opportunity to just talk briefly about a couple of projects focused on making that have been funded at the agency. I'll start with the project Girls Garage from Project H Design in California. And this was actually funded through my division, the Arts Education Division. And Girls Garage is really, an arts and design building project. And what's really great about this program is that it's very intentional in providing pathways for young girls to not only enter the visual arts, but also STEM fields. The project curriculum for Girls Garage aligns with not only CTE standards, but also the National Core Arts Standards in the visual arts, and also the National Media Arts Standards. And that's something that's really critical for our arts education projects, is to talk about how your project not only assesses the artistic skills in students, but also how do your projects align with either state or national arts education standards specifically. So they're able to talk about that CTE and arts alignment in their curriculum quite well. And they also incorporate digital badging. And in the corner of the screen, there's just some descriptor around how they incorporated digital badging with a collaboration with a nonprofit called Skate Like a Girl, where they're able to construct, badges, that are laser etched onto a skateboard. So, and then donate that work to Skate Like a Girl. So, just really thinking through some creative ways to elevate the work of the students, what they're doing in the art form, bringing that out into the community. That is something we really like to see in the projects we support for youth. Another project I want to bring up was not funded through arts education, but it was funded through the design division of the NEA, and that's the Building Hero project by Tiny WPA. And Tiny WPA, they're based in Philadelphia, and they're really taking an approach that's very similar to a community design training program, where it's very action-oriented, very project-driven, and it's an intergenerational project. So young people are working with adults to really think through, of course, what's an issue in our community, how do we want to solve it, how do we make this user-centered. So the Tiny WPA, based in Philadelphia, I think this particular project is relatively new, but they've really made an impact in the city. And finally, I want to share that in addition to supporting projects, funding projects, the National Endowment for the Arts also has a robust research arm. So, this is just an example of a recent research report that was supported through the NEA, focused on industrial design. And this came out in 2017. So, you know, definitely look to us for research. We have, in terms of education, there's a number of studies and research reports focused on arts education. So as you're looking for opportunities to connect what you're doing to research in the arts, we have those reports. And finally, I recommend everyone take some time to go to our website, which is arts.gov. And one of the best features of our website is that you have an opportunity to scan our list of grantees. And you can do that by state, you can do it by zip code, by keyword search. So as you're thinking through other organizations, potential partners, or if you just want to have a conversation with some of these organizations, you know, how they were able to get funding, you know, is there a potential for collaboration? Spend some time in our recent grant search feature. You know, these organizations receive public funding, so there are literally no state secrets. And also, I do want to share, you know, the agency, you know, is always looking for grant panel reviewers. Our citizen panelists are such a key component to making sure we're supporting arts projects that are, you know, meeting standards of artistic excellence and artistic merit. So if you have time, it's pretty intense reading, but if you have the time to serve on a grant panel at the NEA, please let us know. This link has a volunteer form, and feel free to add that information. And certainly, you know, you can reach out to me as well directly.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Lakita, for providing that overview of some really tangible examples of projects that NEA has supported in this space, and just some nice resources and next steps for folks that are interested in better understanding whether their organizations might be a good fit for NEA grants. And I want to be cognizant of time. I know we're right at the top of the hour. So for those who have to hop off, you know, please, you know, feel free to do that whenever you need to. But I did want to actually see if folks had any specific questions or ideas or feedback for our speakers today. So if you do, feel free to use the hand raise option again on your dashboard box, or you can also use the chat box that's on the dashboard at the bottom. And Megan, I'm not sure if there are already is a little queue of questions, but feel free to queue those up if there are. Okay, and actually while we're waiting, I actually wanted to share two quick additional opportunities that are coming up. So the first is actually a convening that Lakita actually shared with me. So the U.S. Department of Education is actually hosting a rural community college convening in Biloxi, Mississippi. That's September 12th through 13th, and it's specifically focused on helping rural community colleges to really scope out some projects that they might be working on that might be a good fit for federal grant applications. And so I think, Lakita, you mentioned that you were probably going to be actually at this convening along with a number of other federal agency colleagues who will be sharing opportunities there. It sounds like it's going to be a really great kind of working 2 days as well. Like it looks like there's some workshopping planned and things of that nature.
Yeah, it will be very intensive and really an opportunity for community colleges to, you know, collaborate with representatives from the federal agencies on what about this idea. So it's an interactive sort of pitch opportunity, and also they go into the logistics of, you know, applying and creating a successful application. So it should be a good experience.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing that with us. And then the second was Maker Ed is actually hosting their annual convening. This year it's taking place in Pittsburgh, October 12th through the 13th. And so Maker Ed is actually an active advisory council member for the Make for All initiative. I think there might be a few folks that are on today who have been to a Maker Ed convening previously. If you haven't, it's actually it's a really great gathering of Maker educators from not just all around the country, but also internationally as well. There are a number of educators outside of the U.S. that come and participate in the convening. So it's really a great sort of professional development opportunity for educators, for Maker educators, as well as just an opportunity to connect with a broader community of Maker educators across the country and around the world. And so if you're interested, registration's still open, and I've included the URL there, and they have lots of detailed information about the schedule and also the topic areas that are going to be covered in the different talks and workshops and presentations. So I will stop there. I think I'll just pause. I think just to see to check in, Megan, if there were any additional questions or thoughts or ideas that folks had that they wanted to share with the group.
Yeah, we can. There's two questions, I think. One for UTeach and then one for the National Inventors Hall of Fame. So I'll start with the UTeach question, which is, does UTeach partner with community colleges, or would they consider a partnership with community colleges? And I'll unmute Shelly.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
So yes, broadly, it really depends on the context of the specific university and your location where you're interested in. So I would encourage you, whoever asked that question, to contact me and let me know what community college you're at and what larger university you're interested in partnering with. And if they're a UTeach program, I can certainly connect you with the people at that university, and you could start in talks with them. Lots of informal partnerships are usually the easiest, just because articulation agreements can be tricky. But working together on projects or in spaces and shared stuff like that, many of the programs that are starting up their Maker initiatives are looking to partner with people in their area. So that would be a great fit.
And then Shawn, I'll unmute you. The question for you is, I'm curious if Shawn has any idea when the Innovation Day in San Jose will be. Also, is there a specific place to look for the information as it becomes available? And I will unmute you now.
I do not have an idea of where that might be. The USPTO does have a satellite office there. And depending on, I think, the availability of the space, that is probably the first place we will or have been looking into. As far as where to go, I will be posting on my LinkedIn. So if anyone wants to, I can throw that slide back up there if you want the information. On our educators website on invent.org/educators, there most likely will be information there as well. But you can also check to me directly or provide me with your contact information, and I'll make sure that you have that. Or through Stephanie, if you like.
Yes, and Shawn, I'll make sure that we send out a way for folks to get in touch with you if they have follow-up questions, whether it's about Innovation Day or one of your other programs. And similarly with other presenters on the call. So I think with that, I know that we're a few minutes past the hour. I wanted to just thank our speakers for sharing more in depth about their work, and also just to encourage you all to, if this was super helpful for you, to join our next call, which will be on Tuesday, September 17th. Same time, and there's a registration link for the next call already available on makeforall.org, so you can feel free to go ahead and sign up there. I'll also follow up with an email that has a recording of this webinar, so you can feel free to share that with your colleagues who maybe weren't able to join today, and we'll also include the registration link then. But thank you so much for joining the August community call, and looking forward to chatting with you all in September. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.